Yeah, y'all, can y'all hear me now? Yeah, I had my sound off so y'all couldn't hear. Okay, assalamu alaikum. You guys can hear us now, right? Yeah, I had the sound out so y'all couldn't hear me talking while I was setting it up because I don't have my moderators. I had to do it all myself. Hold on for 1 second, too. I wanted to set one more thing up, too, because I know y'all might see some lag. And I think because I'm using a different camera, let me turn this off, too, in here for my camera when I got it on HD, high definition. Hold on. Okay, I turned off high definition. Okay, good. That should take away some lag. Let me move it. Okay. Yeah. Because see, usually I have AY in here to help me, and she's not here, so I got to do it all and set up. And hold on this computer too. Let me turn off high definition. Yeah, I know I got two computers I have to use. It's HI off. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. And I'll close this up here. So Brother Yusuf y'all can see him. Okay, Ina alhamdulillah wa salam Allah wa rasulullah. I apologize for being late, but like I said, I'm by myself hosting, doing the hosting. I'd like to welcome everybody to another session of Real Talk, the World in Review with Brother Yusuf Zucovsky. So I'm going to turn this over to him so he can start this week's discussion, which I know is going to be very interesting because we did have some serious events happening this week in review. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Brother Yusuf. You can go ahead and get started, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. We begin again another interesting week, to say the least. To always start off, anytime you have the loss of life, loss of someone's father, someone's brother, someone's best friend, obviously it is something that can't be understated enough. It goes out to those who had pain this week. Obviously, life is very fragile. Every day we wake up, we get in the car, we go to work, and we assume that it's a given that we're going to live to see another 24. We assume our nighttime plans are going to happen, whether those plans are, going to watch a football game, having dinner, doing whatever you may. We all have them. Me being here tonight, obviously, was looked at by me earlier in the day as a foregone conclusion. You can die of a heart attack. You can obviously, as in the case of these three martyrs, if you will, you can be gone. The past few weeks, we talked about their virus scams. They appear to be putting the hantavirus on hold, now, and they're seeming to go back to Ebola, which is kind of like their toy. They like to keep in the bag, and then they bring it out here and there to whip up funding, to whip up fear. As I highlighted with Henta, there was two outcomes. Number one was the worst case scenario, which inshallah has not happened, which was the lockdowns and the revisiting of COVID. Excuses for these vaccine deaths to be blamed on something new. The second one was just to whip up funding. Stocks for Moderna went through the roof during this period of time. We saw massive sell-offs happening when this thing didn't go anywhere, so people made a lot of money, and a lot of people lost a lot of money. As always, if you're in the know, you made. If you're not in the know and you came in failure or fear, of missing out, let me get that stock. The second you do that, they're going to dump on you, and you're going to lose all your money. And that's where my kind of mindset was all weekend. My mindset was on that. Coming in this week, maybe a little bit of Iran stuff would break, because we keep seeing it with the markets with Iran, as I talked about at length here multiple times. They just keep playing with the news. One week it's like a ceasefire. The next week it's going to be peace. Then Iran rejects the deal. The markets just keep going topsy-turvy. And these guys are making a killing. Trump's foundation has made hundreds of millions of dollars in the last 3 to 4 months doing this because they know what he's going to say. They know what the news is before you're going to know. So I'm going in all that. And then I'm driving home from the office on Monday, and I see this, that we had 3 young men or middle-aged men murdered out in San Diego, California. And I immediately said, okay, what's going on here? Because anytime something like this happens, when you know the world, And hopefully you guys are starting to really understand by being here. Inshallah, I've had something to help to point you guys to some places to look and some things to know. That the world is a stage. And when you see things like this, you always should assume what it usually is something that was planned for an evil, dark, agenda. We got these Masons, you got these Zionists, are out here playing God with the world on stage. At least they think they are. And they've done this countless times. So before we really begin to kind of go into this, I want to just again acknowledge the martyrs, the brothers that were lost on this day. We have Mansour Haziza, pronounced that correctly. He was the shopkeeper, at the masjid, older gentleman, often known, kind-hearted, always gave the kids candy for free. Granted, free to be giving kids candy, but we know the brother's heart was in the right place. You have Nadir Awad. He was one who was a regular. Every masjid has this guy. I know who they are here in the center. They're those guys that no matter when you go to the masjid, they're always there. They're just very part of the community, very friendly, outgoing. These are usually people that do work for the masjid for free. I mean, they don't ask for anything for this. They just want the barakah, the blessings and everything from Allah. And then you have the hero that really emerged. They're all heroes, but of course, one gentleman who stood out, I should say, from this, which was Amin Abdullah. Amin Abdullah was a revert, African-American gentleman, had started working security, in the masjid. We have these guys and the one that is here locally. And after being there for a while, he learned and he converted, reverted to Islam and was an active member again of the community. And it's his, heroic acts that could have eliminated or prevented several more deaths, particularly a lot of children, were in there. So we always want to honor these guys and never let them be forgotten as we move on and expose, exactly why all of this happened, or at least what we know as of now. And again, this could have been any of us. And it's been happening on the other side as well. I'm not one of those phony Muslim apologists you're going to see on YouTube with all the views. I'm not one of those, who's going to tell everybody exactly what they want to hear. I mean, we've been seeing this on both sides. We've seen in Europe numerous Christians in places of worship who've met the same fate and the same type of level of attacks where there's highly questionable backgrounds, highly questionable motives, evidence that's shady. And you're seeing again this. They are trying to pit us against each other. And as I start uncovering this, you're going to really see there's no doubt that's exactly what happened here today. And we're going to see who some of the people involved who are complicit, in this. So it could be any of us going to a masjid on a Friday, a Monday afternoon in this case, going to pray, seeing friends, and all of a sudden there's someone, you're vulnerable when you're in worship service, whether you're a Christian or you're a Muslim, your back is turned, usually to the entranceway. If you're a Muslim, you're even more vulnerable. I mean, you're in prostration at times if you're in active prayer, or you're entering your 2 rakahs when you enter the masjid. I mean, you're extremely vulnerable when you're in there. Your defense mechanisms are down. You're in a place of peace and brotherhood. I mean, I've gone to the masjid, I just sit on the floor, stretch my legs out, and start reading a book, oftentimes waiting on the imam or whoever's going I'm meeting there to come. So we're never prepared to be in defense mode. And recently, we've started to see a lot of security being hired for these positions because, again, there's an active danger, in the modern world. So, again, as I mentioned, we've got people out here who are trying to take reality into their own hands and are manipulating world events and trying to whip up conflict. And just like any of the other attacks that have happened, I always go in and I investigate before I come here on camera. We saw one, which we'll mention a little bit later, in New Orleans, where they blamed us for attacking the Christians. You had a questionable story, questionable evidence, and we're going to do the same for everything. We're always going to be fair and even here. We're not going to lay blame. We're going to lay blame where the blame, goes, not to the people they want us to lay blame on, the same way they wanted the Christians to lay blame on the phony attack of the car, the vehicle, about a year or so ago in New Orleans. They're wanting us to lay the blame on the Christian community, particularly the white community. And we're going to see how much of a farce, That is, as we start breaking down what exactly went on. Our rulers want us at each other's throats. There is an agenda here. They want us to war, and we're going to pack that up. So, Kane Clark and Caleb Vasquez were named as the two shooters in this particular scenario. So, what we do know, at 9:43 a.m., the police received a phone call from Kane Clark's mother, alleging that her son was suicidal, stole the car, and had her guns. So this mother calls the police, says, "My son is suicidal. He's taken the car. He's got the guns." Again, this, read into it what you may, just seems a bit off. From my experience dealing with people who are suicidal, you typically don't know. I mean, I had a guy I grew up with, I spent so many of my formative years with, he committed suicide. And if you would ask me, name 5 people, out of 5 people, I'm sorry, that which one of them would be likely to commit suicide, he would have been the least, on that list. I mean, typically we don't know. More times than not, someone who's suicidal will be smiling and laughing. You have no clue of the pain that they are harboring inside. I've always noticed the people that come in and they advertise their emotions. They're wanting attention. They're wanting you to give sympathy for them. They want to be the center of the attention. It's kind of their image. I mean, I've worked with several people. When you walked in the break room, you'd see them. They're advertising their sorrow. None of those people ever succumb to suicide or the pressures of it. It takes, you can say guts, if you will. It takes a little bit of, craziness, obviously, as well. And usually people who do it are not people who are the norm. It is not very common. So this is a little bit interesting here. 11:43, the police receive a phone call that there was a live shooting at the Islamic Center. They would arrive in 4 minutes. So you're estimating about 11:38, about 5 to 6 minutes before the phone call got made. There may have been some skirmishes outside. Again, we don't know. But 11:47, the police had arrived on the scene. So you're talking about pretty phenomenal police response. I mean, they were there like that and dealing with the traffic in California. I mean, they had to have someone pretty close, but they were on the scene, found those gentlemen I mentioned, these martyrs earlier, dead. And then later, of course, about 3/10 of a mile, so about a 2 to 3 minute walk, they would find the car with these 2 alleged shooters deceased inside the car. So before a single photo was released, this is always when you watch these scams, watch the behaviors and watch who's doing the behaviors. Before a single photo was released, you had prominent Muslim personalities, I saw them in the timelines, immediately going after white people and Christians. There was not even a name, a picture, nothing. And these people on cue were doing their job. They were whipping up the hate. It's those people over there. They did this. This is Christian fanaticism. These are white supremacists. And of course, the Zionist media is in lockstep because these Muslim leaders work for the Zionists in many cases, for a majority of the cases. And they were doing the same thing. It's like you already had an open closed case before a piece of evidence, before a statement, a witness, anything. You already had them saying those guys did it. It's like the same thing we saw. They did this for 60 years now with John F. Kennedy's murder. They didn't even have Lee Harvey Oswald arrested. And you already had the newspaper, communist sympathizer, communist sympathizer, communist sympathizer, Castro, Russia, yet all that stuff, going on when there was not even to the known public who this man was, what his affiliations were, because that was the cover story. And they're reading off a script. They already know what to say. So they're going and doing it. The fact that the photos took so long to get out immediately showed me they're not who the media said they were. Because if these were 2 Southern, you want to call redneck, Southern pickup truck driving white man, they would have had pictures of those guys in a second. But the pictures kept being delayed. It's like they're not showing them. And if we're going to get to when they did and the mess that was made there, but the media would have been all over this. But we notice when there's silence or they take a little bit of time, it's always not what the narrative they wanted it to be was. So when they did finally release, one of the teams was not even in the pictures. It was only of one. And again, there was another series they released after about maybe an hour or two. They released the other gentleman, Mr. Caleb Vasquez. And the picture they kept showing of him was not even him. You had a guy who was the guy of the photo that they were using, had done a video. He's like, hey, look, I'm right here. I don't know who this guy is. It's not me. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, this is the level of journalism that we have in this country now that this poor guy, I hope he sues them. The only way to get rid of this media is to sue it into oblivion. It's just, I mean, make these people pay hundreds of millions of dollars. If I'm him, I'm on the phone with the best lawyer I can find in the San Diego area and be like, hey, look, man, now I've got everybody looking at me in public thinking I'm a murderer when it's like I'm minding my own business and I'm right here. They did the same thing, you know, in Europe when there was the young African migrant had murdered some white girls, and they were showing a picture of some guy that had zero to do with it because they were saying, oh, he was a Muslim. No, he was just a migrant who was angry, who had no business being in the UK. But they were saying, oh, Islam, Islam, Islam. And then the guy they were showing a picture, I was like, hey, I'm here. I didn't do it. And again, he sued them, and I'm sure he's going to win, and hopefully he does win a large chunk of money, just like this individual, because this is just dishonesty. And again, I think the reason they were showing this guy, is what we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, was that he was better for their narrative than who the person actually was and how that person actually looked. So about an hour or so into this, I started seeing other headlines that completely were erased. Trans couple. Interesting, huh? Trans couple was appearing. The media rushed to do damage control on this, but these were some also things that were coming out early on into this, was we started seeing. And then when you look at these two boys, as they started coming out with the real photos of them, needless to say, I mean, they are definitely feminized. They are highly feminine. One of them, he looks like a girl. I had to zoom in on the thing to see if it was one of them that had been actively taking hormones or it's just how he looked naturally. But they both are extremely feminine. Caleb Vasquez, who they hid his identity from us and showed the other guy I just pointed out, he was a third of his way, if you will, into becoming trans. So it appears that this was a trans couple, but then again, cloudiness and shadiness, those reports were refuted. People said there was no very sort of verifiable facts about those claims, but we're just going to leave the visuals for now. And again, they claimed that these guys had a 75-page manifesto. And then that manifesto the next day started making its way into social media circles. Can't say I read all 75 pages, but I did read quite a few of them. And this was ridiculous, to say the least. Now, keep in mind, Caleb Vasquez, obviously they're calling him a white supremacist. He was Mexican, at least half. Last name, facial features consistent with a Hispanic, obviously from immigrant families. Kane Clark does appear to be white Caucasian, but could possibly, have a little bit of Hispanic. That's, again, speculation at this point. But Cain Vasquez is clearly Hispanic. And the manifesto was containing anti-immigrant language. And you're going through and attacking the illegals, attacking the way that demographics in America are changing, yet there's a Hispanic gentleman who it's safe to say either he's first, second, or third generation immigrant. In California, in San Diego, anyone who's been there knows the population is majority Hispanic at this point. A lot of them are illegal. So anti-immigrant was a bit curious here, to say the least. Anti-immigrant, anti-Jew, Jewish rhetoric was filled all over the paper. That's going to become crystal clear as we move on here. Anti-Trump, as well. They were angry at Trump. Trump was not doing enough. Trump was a liar. Trump was a puppet of whom? The Zionists. So they were going to that angle. Anti-women, and generally anti-everything. It was as a who's who of talking points, if you will. Now, it reminded me as I'm reading this of something that's written by someone who's really not in the culture they're trying to write about. And they're trying to cram like everything possible into there. And again, the Jew theme was the one where the most anger was directed. It was constantly going back to it's the Jews. The Jews did this. These are the people that are controlling. They control the media. They outlined that, in the manifesto. They talked about difficulty with getting women in the modern day society. We've covered that on this program at length in the past, where we've talked about the nature of females. They covered that in this manifesto. A lot of the stuff in the manifesto was true, but it was written in a way to frame it as completely insane. The things that they were saying about the Zionist control was accurate. Then they would go off and they praised the Christchurch, New Zealand shooter as being one of their inspirations, their heroes. They praised other mass shooters. They didn't praise Hitler, which was surprising to me, because usually when the Zionists come out and they phony a document or doctor up a document, fake or forge something, they always got to get a Hitler reference in there. So it was a bit surprising that was missing. But they did go out there and they mentioned all these others. Now, one thing that jumped out on me, in here, and often when someone fakes something, they're going to leave a mistake, something that's very subtle that only the trained eye is going to be able to see. Now, we had a couple weeks ago, just to kind of show you how this works. There was an Indian gentleman. He had made an allegation against a white CEO, I believe, of a company, that she was forcing sexual favors on him, that she was humiliating him and things. And he wrote out his statement as to what she was saying. And I was reading through it and I was like, I know he's lying. And I knew he was lying because he used language that he was not familiar with how we are, what words we use in this country. He was an outsider trying to place his words into somebody else's mouth. And when you do that, you're going to leave some clues. So what this Indian gentleman had done was he said that the woman was insulting him for being Asian and his wife for being Asian. No American calls Indian people Asian. We don't do that. They want to be known as Asian. To Americans, an Asian is clearly Korean, Cambodian, Chinese, Japanese, Vietnamese. It's not an Indian. So I knew he was lying because I'm like, no white lady would use such language. He's writing from his own mind and placing his words in someone else's mouth. So when you look at the way some of these things are written and you see different mistakes that are made, there are subtle things that only someone who knows would catch. And we found one of those in this manifesto. One thing, again, that jumped out was that when they were talking about the white race in this document, they did not capitalize the letter W. Now, to a lot of you, you'd be like, what are you going with this, Brother Yusuf? What do you mean? A few years ago, in a dehumanizing ritual, the liberals started saying that they refused to capitalize W in white. They were trying to take away the dignity of white people. So what they said was that black and brown, when describing black and brown people, they would capitalize the B's. But when they do this with the whites, they would not capitalize the W. This was a big thing, online. Again, it's how the left is. They want to take away anything of pride from anybody of European descent and kind of make them feel low, like they're not important or valued. They have no identity. So when these guys are writing this manifesto, they didn't capitalize the W. Now, if they truly were white supremacists, the Mexican white supremacists, the media likes us to believe, they would have made sure to do this. But they did it multiple times. So it wasn't just like one typing mistake. No. They did this quite a few times, which shows, again, the person that wrote this is not the people that they're claiming that they are. The left does this intentionally when they're describing a group of people to dehumanize them. No one from that group would make the same mistake. Now, Cain, the first one, the one they did show the original photos of, he's got pictures where he's got cornrows. Anyone who's not familiar with cornrows, it is a style that is synonymous with African culture. Cornrows, when you have a white person wearing them, they're usually called names. There's different adjectives used to describe that person. No white supremacist who has these views that the media is claiming that he has is going to be walking around with cornrows. That was also something that was highly, highly suspicious, along with the fact that you have a Mexican son of immigrants actually supposedly being called a white supremacist. So it gets even more crazy, if you will. When they were searching the cars, they found a Nazi symbol on a spare gas can. I mean, this just reeks of planted, phony evidence. Who's got a gas can in the trunk of their car that they use for emergency purposes if they run out of fuel, just to put a little gallon in there to get them to the nearest gas station? Hey, let's put a Nazi symbol on the dirty gas can. People may put the Nazi symbol on the dashboard. They put them on the clothes. You put them on the windows or whatever. You're not going to put it on the gas can. But I saw this, I just started laughing. It was like, okay, let's stick that there. Let's stick that there. Let's stick that there. It reminded me of the old Jerry Springer days, when Jerry Springer famously brought this supposed Ku Klux Klan member. And again, Jerry Springer was a Zionist. He was a Jew. And he was trying to make black and white go at it. So he would get an actor to go out there and play a Ku Klux Klan member to convince African Americans that the majority of white people knew someone, or someone was active in the Klan, when the Klan has been gone for decades. And we found out later on that the actor that he used to play the Klansman was actually married to a black woman, one of them. And it was just so comical. And what they did was they stuck all these different patches on the uniform, which was inconsistent with the ideology. They had to stick the Confederate flag of the southern states on there. Let's stick this cross up there. Let's stick Nazi symbols. When these ideologies, they may have some common ground, but they're opposed in quite a many areas. But they didn't know that. It's all about optics. And that's exactly what this looks like. Remember when we had the one, I covered it here. We had the gentleman they blamed for the car attack, who was supposedly a fanatical Muslim. And he was never seen in the masjid. He was a drunk. He didn't have any of the MO of someone who was passionate about his religion. And when they went into his house, it was the same type of thing. You had the Quran open to passages or ayah on jihad. You had a hadith book open to the pages of jihad, like just laying around the house on the couch. Here's the hadith book. What page? Oh, it's jihad. The book of jihad is there. And then when they went in his closet, it was like all nice and folded Palestinian scarf, was right there. I mean, it's like, come on, people. I mean, who's, decorating their home like so that way I walk in, I'm like, oh, okay, he wants to do jihad. He likes Palestine. I guess he's going to go do jihad tonight. I mean, it was just so phony. And that's exactly what this looked like here. It was just planted, evidence. And again, when you look at the manifest, it looks like it's written in a gibberish AI type format. Now, they did go in, there's a couple of grammatical mistakes, which look to me to be intentional. Because on one hand, you've got pretty good use of the English language. And then on the other hand, you've got bad grammar and bad punctuation and things like that, which is inconsistent. Usually if someone's a bad writer, they're going to be a bad writer all over the place. And I think typos happen and things like that. But this clearly was typed for a Word document where you're going to have all the different prompts telling you that this was incorrect spelling, this incorrect punctuation, and things like that. But the way that it was structured did remind me a lot of the kind of jumbledness that you get from AI. And again, every right-wing reference, they did not leave one off. This is going to be relevant as I tie this all together here at the end. Every right-wing reference was there. Anti-women and the reasons for the women were well documented online. The red pill movement is what it's usually known as. You've got, the anti-immigrant messaging I talked about earlier, anti-black, anti-Jew, which that was the underlying theme of everything, anti-Arab. They seemed to have no problem with Muslims in the manifest, but they didn't like the doctrine and the religion of Islam. And they described themselves as eco-Christian fascists, which is interesting. I've never heard those strung together before, that they're an eco-Christian fascist, a earth-loving Christian who also believes in fascism. I have the Catholic Church, so it's not that far removed from the fascist part, but, a very weird ideology here because it's not consistent with Christianity. Nazism is not consistent with Christianity. If you're a Nazi and you go look up things that Hitler said about Christianity, it's not favorable. Nazis in general did not have a favorable view of Christianity. You can't be a Christian and be a Nazi. It just doesn't go well together. They're too opposed ideologically. But that, again, doesn't matter to the Zionists because they've got to encompass all this stuff for what I'm going to be sharing, that I see where this is going. And it's already starting to go there. Now, when we look at the masjid itself, what's interesting about this masjid is that you have a anti-Zionist imam known as Taha Hassani. Hassani, after October 7th, really kind of stepped it up with his criticisms of the state of Israel. We saw, like, I didn't really know who this gentleman was until I looked it up for this, but he had a lot of this, type of thing going on. He was really leading a lot of hoopbas. He wasn't like one of those sellout imams who was sugarcoating everything. This brother was out there telling facts. I mean, I don't know everything he said, so I can't say everything he was saying was fact, but what I did gather, a lot of it was true. And he was known, in the community for having these kind of anti-Israeli sentiments. So it's kind of interesting, isn't it? There's always these places that will get the random crazies are going out to attack it, but yet the masjids with the corporate imams, the LGBTQ imams, the anti-white racist imams, like we saw in New York, who support Zohrab Mamdani, those guys never get anything, do they? It's always the brothers that are real, guys like this that are having something like this happen to them. So again, you've got, to put their parts together, you've got two white supremacists with one Mexican, trans, possibly, potentially. They're angry at Jews. They're angry at everything, generally, the way the Jews have manipulated modern Western society. And they decide, hey, we're going to end our lives today, and we're going to go attack a Muslim center led by an imam who's anti-Zionist. That doesn't really add up, does it? If I'm so desperate, now I haven't been in that kind of frame of mind, so I've got to kind of project here a bit. If I'm that angry at my life and I want to end it, and I have so much hatred in my heart for people that I'm highlighting in my 75-page manifest, I'm going to do a better job of screening who I'm going to go out there and try to attack. Because this is your life here. You're willing to give it up for this act. Why would you choose a place like this? You'd be no reason to do that. You would go out there, why not a synagogue, if this is your hatred, if this is where you're going, this is who you're really angry at. Why not go after a pro-Zionist masjid if you want to get Muslims and the Zionists out of your country and their rhetoric? No, you go after, again, the guy who's very vocal about these issues. So again, highly, highly suspicious, behavior. So they had a video as well of this. Now, I saw the ending of the video. I did not see during the video. I saw the crop version where they're in the car. The one gentleman, he shoots his partner. Looks like it was Kane Clark. I think it was. Roy Vasquez shot Clark and then turns the gun on himself. And you can't see the gun going in, but you see the gentleman fall and the blood coming out of the mouth. And the first thing I thought, too, when I saw this video was, why is it that every single time we have something like this, the camera quality is like it's from the 1990s? I mean, everybody now has a professional piece of photography equipment in their pocket. Everybody's got a smartphone. I've never met anyone that doesn't have at least a 2010 above smartphone. We do have a gentleman in my work who he only has a phone because he had to have one for his work, but he's very anti-cell phone, but he's still got a cell phone that was within the last 10 to 15 years. You have a phone from 2013, 14 up, camera quality is decent. You have a modern one, it's exceptional. And young people are known to always have the cutting edge, the most newest of technologies. And yet we see the same thing. Bad video quality, horrible. I mean, it's like, it could have easily been phonied by AI, no question about it. It was highly suspicious, to say the least. And we see this every single time. You never see a crystal clear, beautifully produced video like what Layla's using, what I have here on this camera. I'm using right now an iPhone 14. Through the streaming, it's not the most highest of resolution, but it's better than what these guys were supposedly using. So highly questionable video as well. And then I was looking up too to see, are these individuals going to be buried? Are they going to have a funeral? And so far, there's no funeral information, which is also highly questionable and suspicious. So what went on? I mean, truly, what went on? We don't know. Did they do it? Was this some kind of hit squad? We know those brothers were martyred. We know that. But who? How? Well, I mean, we don't know. And I don't know if we ever will. But we do know the story stinks. We do know it's inconsistent. You've got trans people, highly feminized men, Mexican white supremacists, manifestos that are written and insane all over the place, covering every right-wing talking point known to man, like it was written by some radical feminist who was trying to pretend she was a white supremacist Mexican, apparently. But I mean, it was really, again, it didn't reek of anything that was authentic. It just stunk, every aspect of this story. Now, when the crime happens, and like that, you've already got people coming out and giving solutions that something was going as a cover-up. Something was going on. So what have we seen? Well, we've seen imams coming out and doing what? Calling to vote. Can't make this up, can you? Vote. Vote for whom? I think when I highlighted the 95%, Zohran Mamdani, the imams that told everybody to go vote for him, I know who we're going to tell them to vote for. Vote for the liberals. Vote for the baby killers. Vote for the LGBTQ party. Vote for the racist party. Vote for the open borders party. Vote for those guys. That's your friends. Muslims, go support your local Democrat. Go do that. Because that's exactly what they're doing here. That's exactly what they did in New York when they put that gentleman up there who we exposed here on multiple occasions. You're seeing the Zionists. They were out there first, as always, because they're going to make this about them. You have 3 brothers martyred, and you got Zionist rabbis on television talking about hate against Jews. I mean, you cannot make this up. It's like no Jew was killed. No Jew was harmed. If you go out and look at how many Jews have been attacked in America, the numbers, they're so low you can't even remember them. It hardly ever happens. We have white Christians killed all over Europe with these attacks on a monthly, weekly basis. You hear nothing of their stories in the media. You hear nothing about any Muslim that's ever victimized in India, by Hindu groups in the media. You hear nothing about anyone, but anytime it's like one of them, they'll be talking about it for 20, 30 years. And they're going out and they're comparing it to the Holocaust like they always do. That's their one-trick pony. They're always going to go back to that. They're always going to say, look, it'll happen again if we don't do something. So when I mentioned all those talking points, why did they use them? Because they're wanting to attach these points to murder. So when they go out and start promoting, which they're already doing, to cut back on free speech, to bring Twitter back to where it was 2020, where you couldn't say anything on there without getting banned or blocked. They don't want to be criticized for their crimes. And they're going to use the gullible Muslim community who's following these imams to help with this, because they're going to say it's hate speech. Legitimate criticism is not hate speech, but hate speech is such a broad term that they can frame anything. If I say that there's an effort, planned out, conspiracy of the Zionists to manipulate my government policy, that now would be considered hate speech. I should be fired. I should be in prison like they do in parts of Europe already. You got so many people in England now in jail for social media purposes or posts, but yet you have this Sikh man who stabbed a white British boy just last week before this attack happened, and then the police did nothing. He stabbed him, stole his phone. All the rest of his community watched this boy bleed to death in the streets. They said nothing. But if you post, I don't want him in my country, walking around carrying his ceremonial knife, then you should be deported, or not deported, but in prison. I mean, it's a joke. And that's where they're going to go with this, to try to further restrict freedom of speech, because freedom of speech is one of the last things they are truly afraid of. They don't want ideas shared. They don't want discussions to be had. They want to cut it all off.
Any criticism of Israel and Palestine, straight to lockup, go in the hole. Like that's where they want. You criticize the Holocaust in Canada, jail. You criticize aspects of the Holocaust in Germany, jail. They want it here. They want our guns and they want our mouths. They want both of them gone. Once that happens, there's no barriers anymore. You're not going to be able to wake people up. You're not going to be able to share a message that's not proven and sanctioned by them. They have to approve everything before you're going to be allowed to say it. You're going to see restricted hoopahs. You already do. If you go to any GCC country, every hoopah on Friday has been filtered by the authorities in power in those given nations. It was the same thing here. Any hoopah, any social media post, any video, everything's censored. And they'll use this type of stuff. See, look what the internet has done. It made a Mexican white supremacist, go out and kill. He hated women. He hated blacks. He hated everybody. Let's just censor any criticism of anything. And then, of course, they didn't like Jews. So we've got to go out there and do that. So again, they're going to start off as always innocent and nice with the rhetoric, but we know where it leads. We know where they're going. So this case, just like any of the other ones, settle down, as always, pick it apart, look at the story, analyze it. We do know we have 3 martyrs. Alhamdulillah, may they rest in peace. May they have a peaceful journey to Jannah. May they have a blessed existence. But again, at the end of the day, we don't know what else happened. But we do know their story stinks. We do know it's inconsistent. It doesn't make any sense. It's all over the place. And we see who they're trying to push us to hate, go after the white Christians. And I can say right now, as a Muslim man, openly Muslim man, I work in a factory that's located in a small town with the same people they would vilify to you and tell you are our enemies. I have never faced anything but nice honesty from these people, nothing else. When I pray, I even have some of them are so respectful because I have to pray in a little corner in our office area there. Oh, do you want us to talk? Do you mind if we talk? Or you want us to go out while you do this? I mean, they've been so respectful. Like, no, carry on. Carry on. During Ramadan, I had several of these people. Do you mind if I eat in front of you? Do you mind if I have this? Like, no, brother, eat. I'm fasting, not you. I hope you fast with me one day, but right now you're not. I've been, again, given nothing but respect. When they had a company cookout and they were eating pork, they went out to the store to buy me a rotisserie chicken. So I had something to eat with the group without me even asking or making a comment. They went and they did that to me. So when you're good and respectful to people in this culture and community, you will get treated the same way. But we do have some members of our community, and now you're seeing it with this. They're coming on social media and they're saying, why are we not getting any sympathy from these Christian people? It's because of the way you're acting, because of the hate, because of these people that you're following, because of your marriage to the left. That's the reason they're not liking you. When you go in and you represent your deen intellectually and morally, you're going to get respect. Now, people may not agree with what you believe as a Muslim, but they're going to respect you. You earn the respect with the way you carry yourself. All this stuff that's going on in Europe, these crimes, these rapes, all these imams stay silent. People notice things like that. You see these girls stabbed and killed. You don't have one imam come out there and criticize the community that did this, not one. And then you want them to have sympathy for us when we have something like that. It's just not going to work that way. We build those bridges by the way we act and behave. We are better. We are morally better. We believe that. We can prove that. We have to show that. And when you're coming in with 40% of the jails or whatever in the average European city are filled with Muslims, are we really, proving that? No, absolutely not. So again, to ask for sympathy in a time like this from a community we've shown no sympathy to. Now, I'm not saying all of us. I'm talking about certain people, obviously. We never went out there and marched or stood side by side with non-Muslim members of our community when certain members of our community have done bad things to them. So if this story was true and bad members of their community had done bad things to us, are they going to really be open to doing the same? No. So we've got to use these opportunities to turn it on these people and build bridges. We don't have to compromise who we are. Never would I condone that. We are unapologetic, but we have to be who we're supposed to be, not who they want us to be. Because when they're showing their phony attacks all these terrorist attacks that we know are not Muslims committing these things. September 11th being obviously the most famous of these. You know, and then we have our people going out there and acting like this, acting like pure thug savages. And you have nobody from the Muslim community criticizing them. Automatically, that link is made. Instead of that person saying, wait a minute, all those Muslims I met at work were awesome people. They're all friendly. They're always there. They don't commit crime. They don't commit adultery. They're family-oriented people. I don't believe they would do this. But when we have people like, especially in Europe, behaving the way the Muslims are behaving in Europe, they're just going to say, yeah, that sounds about right. I've seen it every day when I go to work. And I mentioned on here before that one guy came to me and he had heard something from social media about Islam, and it wasn't true, obviously. And he came to me, and I was so honored that this happened. He said, you know, I knew you would never agree with something or a religion that promoted that, so I wanted to ask you. And I said, absolutely, it's false. And I told him why it's false with evidence. And he said, yeah, I knew you would never do that. That's what we have to do. That's who we have to be. And when they try to fake these attacks, it'll be more and more obvious to more and more people. And they're never going to get their end goal, which is disunity, division, and hatred. And I will close on that. And I'm open always to discussions and questions on what we covered or anything else that's on your mind.
I was muted, but I was wondering about your opinion on. I mean, every day. I live in Los Angeles, California, but every single day I have people knocking on my door, not just putting things in the mailbox, but about voting. Are you ready to vote? Are you registered to vote? Let me see your card. Let me see your this. Let me see your that. It was like, vote here, vote. You see it all over the television, all over the computer. Vote for this Martinez guy, and we'll vote for this, and he's all for immigrants, and he's all that. But when they're showing the commercials of this on television about vote for this person, the people that are surrounding him are, most of them are people that we're already having problems with here in America, with them being treated differently or getting more privileges or getting more opportunities and resources than the people who have been here forever.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, this is a thing. And when I talked about immigration a few weeks ago was over on Mamdani, there was a couple people. Immigration is such a hot button issue that we have been convinced in the West that we have a God-given right to open up for everybody. I have a house. You know, there's only so many rooms in my house. I don't have any duty to open up my doors to all of you. I don't. You know, it's like there was an article I read about people in Malaysia were upset that all these white reverts, these are white males who converted to Islam, were moving. They didn't want them in their country. You know, and all these white reverts will come here and call me names and say these things. You know, it's like, look, when you try to go to your brothers over there, what do they say? They don't want you. You know, it's like, it's is it right? No, on either side, no. But this is the reality. We as Americans, this is the only home we have. We have no obligation to open up our country to the world. We have none. You know, it's like I hear all the time, well, there needs to be more Indian laborers. No, we don't. We as long as there's one unemployed American, there should not be one immigrant. Immigration, you can't complain about your rent if you're open borders, because open borders causes your rent to go up. You can't complain about the price of goods and services if you're open borders. You have no right to complain, because open borders raises the price of goods and services. No one wants to live in a country where you walk down the street and you can't even move because it's so overcrowded, like some of these countries where these immigrants are coming from. We don't have this obligation, and we don't have any moral fears of saying that. You know, no. And as you said, they're going around trying to get the American people to vote for them. And then you see who they're supporting. It's not American people. It's not the American citizens, the foundational founding stock Americans. And when I explained that maybe a year ago, what founding stock means to me. It means Americans that have nothing but their entire history and destiny tied to this place. There's nowhere I can immigrate to. I have no home. This is my home. If you're African American, there's nowhere for you to immigrate to. This is your home. You know, we're in it together. You know, these people have a place they can go. They keep multiple passports. They can go back. You know, but we have no home. And in order for us to welcome any new people into our home, we have to make sure our home is clean and orderly, and that everybody in our home is taken care of. There's nothing immoral about that, you know, at all. And it's just been a way for them to whip up conflict. And they're doing that very well, particularly in Europe. Europe is a powder keg waiting to explode at this point.
And I have to also just add, guys, remember, we're Muslims, and our allegiance, our allegiance is to Allah, to the Prophet, to each other in Islam. And it's haram for us as Muslims to vote anyway in any election for a president, because Allah says in the Quran, and our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that no non-Muslim can ever be a ruler over us. That's why even as a Muslim woman, your father cannot even be a guardian over you, not even in marriage. So, and then we cannot even inherit from our mother and father if they are non-Muslim. So I have to also put that we have to remember the el-bara. We have to distance ourselves. We live in America as our country, but our allegiance is to Islam. So we can't participate in no elections. We can vote for the garbage man. We can vote for the school board president for the schools, but as far as who's going to be a ruler, a leader over you, we can't participate. If you're a Muslim and believe la ilaha illallah, you know, when they knock on your door and tell you to vote in election, you say el-bara, and you close the door and throw it in the trash. So I want y'all to remember that you have to know how to separate yourself from secularism.
And when you vote, if you did vote, I mean, no matter who you're voting for, I always come down to the Democrats much more because they're worse. But the Republicans, the same thing. If you're voting for any of these people, they're doing something that's haram in your name at that point. You are contributing to their conduct. The Republican Party overall, their platform may be better from a moral standpoint than the Democratic Party is, but they're still doing things that are haram in our religion. And when you cast that vote for them, you're contributing to that. You are taking part in that system. I voted one time in my life. I'll never vote again. Even before, I always knew if voting was real, they wouldn't let you do it, number one. They don't want to have to rig an election. They do rig elections. They don't want to have to do that because they have to cover more things up. They have to go a little bit more effort. They want you to go where they want you to go, willingly. So if you're willingly signing over your death warrant, they're happy with that. But if you don't willingly do it, they're just going to cook the books and they're going to give you who they want anyway. But they would prefer it to be done as close to an honorable way, if that makes sense, as possible. Don't give them that. And you see all these imams I talked about, vote, 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 you know, as usual. They're telling you to vote for who? Zohran Mamdani's party, 95%. Can't leave that number out. Voted for that leftist pig in New York.
Yeah. And remember, guys, republics, like he said, democracy is again, Islam is, we don't believe in a democracy as Muslims, and we do not believe in a republic as Muslims. We believe in a caliphate. All of this stuff contradicts Islam. So if you are Muslim, we don't believe in none of this stuff. All of this contradicts la ilaha illallah. So we have to know how to separate. We can live in a non-Muslim country, but you have to know how to separate yourself from that which, you know, contradicts Islam. But we have a good question here, Brother Yusuf, from one of the brothers here. He says, so do you believe that this whole incident that happened in San Diego was a setup, that it was really government inspired, and they just found three stooges to pin it on?
Oh, absolutely. And again, that's where it gets tricky. I mean, how they did it, I don't know. But as I said, the story stunk. It looks like, again, the mosque they happened to target. The imam who was there, they happened to target. This masjid also has an individual, very controversial individual, connected with it as well. This Uthman Farouk, very prominent One Message Foundation social media guy. This is the same guy that faked a hate crime about 3 years ago. He pretended he got stabbed by a white man trying to blame white Christians for assaulting him. The crime was totally fake. The police never even acknowledged it. They never even did an investigation. There was no police report even tied to him. He used like what looked like Cairo syrup or ketchup on his outfit and pretended he was stabbed because he was trying to whip up hate. This is the same guy who was doing the prayer in the streets in New York with the Sneakster and the Warner and all these guys. Again, that's what I was talking about, that optic, getting us to be hated. You know, this guy's been very, very prominent in that. And he's connected to this masjid. Who knows? I don't want to put names out there in any kind of ill way, but I'm just saying what his crimes are. But he was also connected to this place as well. We don't truly know, only Allah knows, and those who perpetrated this attack. But it does look like it's two stooges, phony, weak AI-made suicide video. No funeral so far scheduled. I haven't seen, and maybe they'll come out, I haven't seen anyone even say they knew these people, even coming out with anything about them. We do have pictures of them from school, but I mean, that can easily be manipulated. We don't know. And I'm not going to say yes or no about those parts, but is it something set up? Yeah. I mean, it's 100% at this point. And again, you look at their solutions. They already had them ready. Censorship, vote for the Democratic Party, gun control, all the usual leftist talking points that they want to get when they have things like this happen, and disunity. I mean, Muslim, if you're a Muslim who chose to live in this country, it was a Christian country. The majority of people are Christian. You have to be a good neighbor. You have to be friends with people as much. Again, you don't compromise your Islam, never. But none of them at work have ever asked me to compromise my Islam. I mean, I've gone to work in peace. I've gotten along well with everyone. I've never been asked to compromise my Islam. We have to be better as ambassadors of religion, and we'll start having some of them on our side, slowly but surely. We can undo the damage that's been done by the lying imams, the lying social media controlled influencers, and the Zionist media, all working in tandem to make us despised and hated. So eventually one day somebody might do something like this. Is it actually real? It was actually someone with these motivations that wanted to come in there and harm us. Because all their lives they've seen nothing but Muslims on YouTube cursing them, calling them names, Muslims blocking traffic, praying in the roads, Muslims yelling like they did in Dearborn, Michigan. You can't have your church bells here, or we can have the adhan here. Things like that matter. As optics. Let's prove the opposite of the optics they're showing. We can win people over and start unifying people against a common enemy in a sense. It is a common enemy. We both share the same one. They stage attacks to blame on us, on them, in their places of worship. And they stage attacks on us and blame it on them in our places of worship. They do both. We're both victims here.
The brother continues. He says, I thought I was the only one who felt this way. He said, I agree with you totally. I believe that this was a conspiracy from the government with that mosque too, being that mosque is number one in an affluent area, an affluent mosque, and it's the largest in that area. And that area is known for being the type of area that is anti-Islam. He said, I agree 100% that there's more behind this than what the media and the government wants us to believe.
Absolutely. I mean, two homosexual, white supremacists with Nazi insignias, who are a trans couple by most accounts at this point. One is Mexican, is any immigrant Mexican, interesting. It just, again, it was every cliche known to man thrown in on this. It was the same thing I mentioned with the brother they claimed. He wasn't the brother, I'm sorry. The guy they claimed was the brother, is the word I should use there, down in New Orleans. When they went into his apartment and he just left the Quran pages open, the Hadith pages open. He had all the stuff there. Look, he loves Palestine. Look, he loves jihad. Look, he wants to kill Kufar. There it is. And it just was a bad optic, for people to see. It's the same thing here. You know, like planted evidence. It just was too over the top to be genuine.
Any other comments or questions for Brother Yusuf? This was really a good one.
And that brother won't be alone. There's a lot more people.
Yeah.
That are waking up.
Seeing that too.
They can't get away with this stuff like they used to. They used to, when they didn't have digital media to share information, all you had to rely on was your local news, and they could just crop everything they wanted. That was all that happened in the world. It was easy for them to get away with stuff like this. But now, where you can share information with someone at the speed of light in a matter of a second, they can't get away with it anymore. When they killed John F. Kennedy back in 1963, there was only one video of that murder, the Abraham Zapruder famous film. And they kept that from the public for decades. Once people were finally able to see that film, they said, wait a minute, there's no way Lee Harvey Oswald fired the fatal headshot. He was behind him. The trajectory of the shot was from the front. You know, it's like, but that was something that was so easy to suppress back then. Now they can't get away with it. The second something happens, it's everywhere. That's why they want free speech. Because once they get the censorship back, they'll just start banning, like they did before when Joe Biden was president. They just were banning everybody. You couldn't get anything out without being censored. That's the days they want to come back, but on steroids. They want to be much stronger. So this information ability that we have to share is erased. It's gone.
Exactly. Okay, if there's no other comments or questions, then mashallah, we'll close out. This was very good, Brother Yusuf. And I want you guys to remember to please support this website. Please, if you guys enjoy hearing Brother Yusuf come in every month, please share the videos. Please like at the and subscribe to our channel and share his videos on your social media platforms. And when I put the shorts out tonight of him, please share his shorts. Let him get his word out, because like I said, he's uncensored here. And he will give you a whole different take on the news, you know, a whole different look at what's happening, like he did this. We had Brother Muhammad Ziyada, mashallah, come on earlier this week and speak about how we should respond to this. And I liked his approach, what Mosque should do to tighten up their security to prevent this type of stuff from happening. We should have our own training, private security details in our mosques. That was a great approach. Now, Brother Yusuf came in and gave you guys another way of looking at it. You know, is this stuff really a conspiracy from the government? I mean, we need to take a whole different look at it from another angle. So please share the shorts when I put them out, and please share this video on your social media platform so we Muslims can think, you know, really think about what's happening, be aware of what's going on in the world. So if there's no other comments, I'll call in again. No comments, nothing else to say.
Just to harken on to what you said, sister, that brother's correct. He may have not understood the depth of what happened, but his solution is something that, yeah, I was focusing more on the political and the social. But we definitely should be upping our security, because even if they're doing this to us, like I kind of hope I proved a lot of tonight, we still need protection from it, obviously. Yes. People die.
Yes.
So we do tie the camel and trust in Allah. We go out there and we do everything that we can, and we should beef up our security. So that brother is 100% accurate there. Oh, no disagreement from me.
Oh God, yes, it was excellent. His whole lecture on that was beautiful. And make sure you guys go to my shorts. Click on the tab here on this channel that says shorts, and look at his shorts and share them with your mosque, your community, because you should have a security, send people to security school to become security guards and get them trained. Have the police department come out and train you on shooters, how to handle shooter attacks and all of that. Muhammad Ziyada did a beautiful job. You know, so please, guys, we're giving you the knowledge, the information you need, not just on Islam, but how to deal with life in general here at Sunnahfollowers. So please take advantage of the lectures that we're having here, as well as the classes. So share our videos, get this knowledge out, because what we're teaching you, you're not going to get at the mosques, because the mosques don't want to talk about this stuff. I have an open, I run this baby here. And ain't nobody censoring Layla. You know, this the Sadat clan. We ain't censored. We rule a nation. Okay? So you better share this stuff, guys. All right? Hey, laughing.
No censorship here.
That's right. Okay, bro. And look at the time, guys. Yes, y'all like this time for his class. They said they like the time. Yeah, I messed up today. That was me that messed up. But y'all see, I fixed it. Yeah, he's 7:15. They like you at 7:15, they're saying. Yes.
Yeah, we'll do that until the prayers, because again, I'll never take away from prayer time. I'm about to go pray Maghrib once we conclude here.
Yeah.
Maghrib just hit about 10 minutes ago. So we're never going to disrupt the prayers. So I do like 7:15 better myself as well. But when we start getting back into the winter, you know, into the fall, Maghrib will start falling back in this time again. We'll have to tinker it for a month or so, then hopefully we can come back to this.
Yeah, because they were saying that they were able to make your classes this time, your lecture this time. Yeah, this is him. I messed up, but I'm glad y'all didn't mess up. They were all here waiting because I thought I had blew it because I didn't have AY here. But mashallah, I'm glad y'all were here. So we're going to close out. And yes, I'm at 9:30. My class will be at 9:30. So I'm glad y'all remember because I sure didn't. Okay, so we're going to log out for tonight so he can make my grib and I got to make it too. And I'll see you guys back here at 9:30 and share the shorts. Yes, they're all telling you thank you. Thank you. They really enjoyed this. Okay, assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for coming and always bring questions.
Yes, bring your questions too. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. See you guys at 9:30. Assalamu alaikum, people.